All right, everybody. Thank you for joining another episode of my interviewing random people. Today we have Casey Ruff. Casey and I go way back to, it's been almost 3 years now?
When we first met at Keto Salt Lake in 2022. So just over a year for in person, but we had kind of communicated back and forth. So yeah, probably about 2 years.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. So tell everybody that doesn't know you a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, what you do. I know one of the questions that a lot of people have when they see influencers is, where did they come from? So do you have a strategy? Have you always been this fit, super tan, like guy that we're seeing right now? Or do you have a story that kind of says, hey, we all come from different places and we got to take some time to get where we're going?
Yeah, I definitely the latter for sure. I don't think you can find many people who are in this industry that didn't have to overcome something from their past that kind of drove them toward this.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I always grew up like loving sports. I played ice hockey, which I absolutely loved. I got into cycling at some point, which was great. But I was always kind of the chubby kid that I knew that I was husky, although I didn't really know what that meant. And so that was kind of understanding that like I was carrying too much weight and body fat percentage. My mom got very sick when I was a teenager. She got diagnosed with breast cancer. So as a family, we kind of switched our diets to kind of help her out and support her. So we started eating more low fat stuff. Red vines were in the house all the time, nothing but skim milk. I think we switched from white bread to wheat bread or something. And, we just did the best we could at the time until she passed away 7.5 years after getting diagnosed. In hindsight, obviously, we can identify that the diet was a huge part of that. But yeah, I was interested in sports and always was interested in performance. I played hockey in college for a little while, and I was studying architecture when I joined a local big box kind of corporate gym so I could have a place to train in the off season. And it was there that I started to watch personal trainers do what they do and work with their clients. And this gym was unique because they also were using heart rate monitors to measure people's heart rate. And I had been using heart rate as a way to measure my intensity in cycling for almost a decade. So I decided that it would be fun to work there. So I was told I needed a certification, which I went online and got over the course of several months. And I was hired as a personal trainer in March of 2007. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. Okay. So you went to school for architecture and now you're a personal trainer.
Yeah, so you have to do math with architecture, apparently. And as a personal trainer, we don't even know how to count to 12 accurately. So it's
how many times does that happen to you? Like you're counting reps for somebody and you're like, oh crap, were they on 6? Were they on 8? Like what?
Funny story, actually. I'm always counting anyway, and I think you understand. Like once you get into this profession, it's always just kind of automatic. So like, I was preparing food one night, like a few months into my first job, and I'm like counting like chops of cilantro.
Yes.
So weird. And then a few years ago, my client and I were doing deadlifts. He finishes a set. He's standing around. He's finishing like telling me a story about how his weekend goes, and I go, done. And he goes, huh? What are you talking about? I was like, yeah, what am I talking about? The person behind him was doing push-ups.
And you were counting them by accident.
Counting them and just just said done. So
100%. 100%. Yep. You see some movement and you're like, you're just attracted to that movement. Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7.
That's hilarious. Well, you see, and a lot of times this, for anybody who has a personal trainer or a coach where you work out, just so you know, if they tell you you have 1 or 2 left, it's because they lost track and they want to make sure they don't short your reps.
That's right.
Just absolutely. FYI, that's exactly what it is. Not because you're being mean. It's because they forgot what number you were on and they want to make sure you at least get the initial number of reps you're supposed to get.
This is a personal training expose, dude. Now everybody knows the industry secrets.
Right? There it is. Awesome. So you had a history as a kid. The diet that you were brought up with was very different than what you're doing now. The activities, so even the fitness that you did, I'm sure that's changed, right? As an athlete, the way you focus and the things that you're doing are very different than probably most of the people you work with as clients is, right? Because it's a whole different target, a different goal.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. I think as trainers and coaches, we get really kind of myopic. One personal trainer that I know, kind of co-train somebody with me, and it always seems like whatever this personal trainer's goals are, that's what he makes his people do. So if he's training for the Highland Games, everybody's doing training for the Highland Games when it's not everybody's goal. And so I think it's really for personal trainers and coaches to be locked into what they want and what their philosophies are, and don't take enough time to really question what does this person want? What style of workout do they like? Do they like more routines, or do they like doing different things every time? You have to understand that to be a really good personal trainer, in my opinion. So you really have 100%. To consider what people's goals are and how you can connect with that person.
Yeah. What are the things that you would recommend? Here's a question that isn't on my list, but just popped in my head. What are the things that you would recommend for people who are looking for a trainer? Like, what are the top 3 things they should look for when they're trying to find either a trainer or just a program that they want to join? Like, hey, I need to do something for my fitness. I need something that's going to do X, Y, or Z or whatever. What are the things that you should look for?
That's a great question. I would start off by looking for somebody who can give you some comprehensive intakes. Try to gather information, even if it's just what we offer, which is a free 30-minute consultation. Anybody can go to our site, tell us about what their goals are, and I'm going to be asking questions. Why do you want this? What have you done in the past? What worked? What didn't work? Like, if somebody isn't taking an intake on you, I would kind of run away from that. You and I also use the functional movement screening. So that is a tool that can be used to assess people moving so that we can then design a program. Anybody trying to give you like a cookie cutter program is probably just giving you something that worked for that person and is not considering what your goals are or how your program needs to change. Like, maybe, you and I talked in our last episode that we did together, you and I talked about our goals aren't like a targeted date. It's not a specific event. It's kind of like ongoing. We just want to be healthy and maintain a healthy lifestyle. What if you have a race that you're training for, a triathlon or a marathon or something like that? You now have to periodize your training, meaning you can't train in July the same way you're training in June when your race is. It all has to change. Same with your nutrition. That has to be in flux. And so to have somebody who can oversee that by getting some information from you, intaking it, and then using that to create a really good program for you, those are things that I would look for. Outside of that, I think it's very, very underrated. Find somebody who you like, who asks you questions. You're going to spend a weird amount of time with this person. And it's no joke, in my opinion, to say we are inexpensive therapists. Like, I know my clients a lot more than some of their spouses know their clients. Like, we spend a lot of time together. So if you're going to hire somebody, not only should they be taking care of your program and making sure they're doing the right thing for you, make sure you like them, make sure you enjoy them, make sure that, they're setting up the session for you. I think of myself in a session almost like a caddy in golf, where like,
ooh, I like that.
You show up. Your job is to play golf. It's my job to take the notes, clean the clubs, tell you which club to have and have it ready for you. You can ask me at any time, wait, is this the right club for this shot? I should have a damn good explanation for it, but I should also just be ready to go with your stuff that you need so you don't have to do anything if you don't want to besides get your workout.
I like something you said in there. I'm not sure if anybody caught it, so I'm going to call it out. And that is, be able to explain it if you want me to. If your trainer can't tell you why he or she has you doing the things that they've got you doing, then you need to find a different trainer. If they can't explain to you what's going on, what is the purpose of the movement? What is the purpose of the workout? What should you be doing to get the most out of it? How can you be more efficient? How should you feel during? How should you feel after? Like, there's so many aspects to the work that you're doing with a trainer. If they can't explain that stuff to you, then they haven't earned the money that you're paying them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll further clarify by saying have the ability to explain. That doesn't mean overshare and explain everything all the time to everybody. So like, I'll give you an example. Like a session I did yesterday was with a family of 4 people at their house that I show up to. They have a million things going on. They're very high performing. He does a lot of work in finance. They simply, like, they will never ask me certain questions about certain programming. They want to walk into the workout room, me there 5 minutes early, everything's set up. They leave after an hour. I clean everything up and let myself out. They don't care. And so for me to like explain the technicality of, an incline bench press to their 15-year-old, it's just not really my place in that setting. So I should be able to. And if you ask me, I damn well better be ready to explain it. But it also means know your role and know your place and know when you're oversharing information, I guess.
Absolutely. And that's something for new coaches and new trainers to understand. I know as a new, all I did was, this is why this, and people are like, can I get to a workout at some point in time? You know what I mean? Like,
This is why I appreciate your training style. You worry about the mechanics of it, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And then if somebody wants more technical information, like, yeah, let's Google it or something.
Yeah. And one of my coaching mentors told me two things. One, if you want to keep them engaged, shut up and get them moving. Number one. Number two, you can't correct movement if movement isn't happening. Right. So as a coach, it's my responsibility to keep them engaged and allow them to move, because then I can see where improvement needs to be made. If I try to fix all the errors before they've even started moving, then I'm kind of defeating the whole purpose of them being there in the first place. So get them moving, kind of figure out what needs to happen after the movement happens,
Yeah, no, I really love that. One of my first mentors in this space told me, like, look, you can go down any rabbit hole of corrective work to try to help somebody's, shoulder, but at some point you've got to work with them to get real results. And so, yeah, you can be mindful of certain corrective things to do, but at the end of the day, remember why they hired you. And if they said they want great biceps, as much as you don't want that to be in their program, like, you got to remember that. You got to remember your goals of your clients.
Yep. Always focus on the individual goal. That's one of the key pieces of how I work.
I love that.
All right. So how long have you been doing training now? So you've been doing training, you said, since 2007.
March of 2007. So yeah, this year I just finished 16 years as a trainer.
Wow, dude, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
And you've done some interesting stuff with, I think we're very similar in a ways, right? We both started in the fitness space. Then we found a ketogenic, carnivore kind of nutrition lifestyle. And we're like, oh crap, these two things go really well together, and started working with people and changing pretty much everything that we did and how we did it, based on the combination of the fitness and the nutrition. What was that process like for you? I know for me, when I did it, I owned my gym, and, I won't say 50%, but a good majority of my gym was not happy with me going carnivore, was not happy with me telling people they didn't eat veggies. And I had people leave my gym because they thought I was going to kill people.
It's crazy.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, great question. So there were really two kind of ongoing events that were part of my career that really shaped the way I coach my people now. The first was really early on in my training career. I mentioned that I took an interest in heart rate training. And along with that, these gyms would offer metabolic testing by using a really proper metabolic cart. And so it was very early on in my career that I was certified to be a metabolic technician and run metabolic tests. Soon after that, I was teaching other trainers in the company how to do these assessments and how to interpret the results. And, it was through using that we understood how people's metabolism worked, basically. So like if somebody did a diet and they did lots of cardio, they were burning lots of calories and then eating less calories, we would hook them up on a resting metabolic test and show that their metabolism was suppressed. They would literally teach themselves to burn less calories. We could also hook people up to like a treadmill or a bicycle and put a mask on and do the same test. This is more like a classic like VO2 test. And so we could find out performance markers where people's heart rate zones were. But our metabolic cart that we were using took it one step further and would actually measure the exchange ratio of the oxygen and carbon dioxide coming from the breath in your body. And that's a direct correlation with which fuel you're burning. So we could tell people at different intensities or at rest what percentage of their calories are coming from fat versus coming from carbohydrates. And in the beginning, I would say we didn't really understand how to manipulate that very well. There was a call that I did in 2012 that was really informative, where we heard of this endurance coach who was on this call, and he was training people in Colorado to do world-class triathlons. And these were world-class triathlete athletes that were doing these. And he was saying that he was changing their diets and feeding these triathletes cream and bacon, and they could eat whole eggs, and they actually were changing the substrate utilization or their fat burning when they were on the bike. And we know that you only store just a tiny amount of glycogen in your body. You have a very, very small amount of carbohydrates, which is why if I wanted to go on a bike ride before, I'd have to eat the oatmeal and the banana, and I have all the goos and the sugary drinks, and my stomach would hurt. And that's the only way I knew you could get through a long event. And this guy's saying, like, no, when my athletes eat like 50, 60 calories an hour, they get through fine. They never bonk. And so that was the first time it ever occurred to me that you could manipulate the diet, your calorie burning through your diet. And again, it was kind of a slow. I didn't find ketogenic diets until maybe 2017, 2018. So it was a much slower way for me to get there. I think I'm just a slow person. I need to spend more time studying stuff. I should have known. But the second thing my company was doing is they were doing weight loss contests. And they started out by doing them twice a year, and they were 90 days. And the company learned that if they did this weight loss contest in the 90 days, people would sign up for programs and training and buy supplements. And it was really successful for them financially. So eventually what they did is they changed it from 2 90-day contests to 4 60-day contests. And so there were 4 of these all year. And again, you understand what it's like to be a personal trainer. When we're signing people up for these programs, which we were required to, they wouldn't pay us if we didn't. It's 100% commission, right? Like if people don't sign up, if they don't pay you, you don't get paid any money. And so when we're doing these contests, we're giving people these big packets of all this stuff they need to cook and all these ingredient lists of exotic, one of my clients called me at night, was like, what the hell is arrowroot powder? Like literally crying in the grocery store. I'm like, I don't know. That's a good point. Valid. And everybody would fail. Like as a company, the compliance percentage was around 15%, meaning 15% of 15% of people would stand on the InBody who started the contest by starting out on the InBody, whether they did well or didn't do well. So then as a trainer, you finish that cohort of people doing the contest, you have one more month to now build up for the next one. So you got to go out and sell this package even more. But in the back of your mind, it doesn't work. If somebody signed up for it one time, they're not going to sign up for it again because it failed. So you're always looking for new people. It was just a drag. It was a real grind. It sucked. It wasn't very fun. I never looked forward to it. And so one year, this was the spring of 2018, somebody that was doing the contest was telling me about their diet. And I just said, it sounds like you're not getting a lot of fat in your diet. You should probably get a little bit more fat. You're waking up at 2 a.m. to eat cereal. At least at that point, I knew fat will at least satiate you. So get more fat in the diet. And he came back a few days later and he's like, okay, well, I've lost 2 pounds in 2 days. What is all this keto stuff? Right. I'm like, okay, that's amazing. Let me look into it. And that started my obsession of learning about ketogenic diets. My wife and I, who worked for the same company, we were both responsible for those weight loss contests. And it was after that one had finished and before we started the next one, I'll never forget. We were sitting around on a summer day on the porch, dreading doing this contest again. And we're like, what if we go rogue? What if we do something different? Our company only has one gym in the state. They won't know what we're doing. Why don't we just find a different meal plan? Let's find some low-carb meal plans. Let's do some free seminars. Let's teach these people how this works and guide them along. And let's just see what we can do. And you and I have talked offline before, but using the InBody tool, which you have, which is amazing, we were able to track every single one of these participants that did this contest. We ended up doing 6 more rounds before the gym shut down for the pandemic. And we saw that of the 732 total pounds lost, 732 pounds total loss, 720 of those pounds came from fat. The compliance percentage that we had in our group was north of 65%. So people were doing it. They were sticking with it. We would track between. Oh, it was great. We would track between the contests to just see okay, we know that everybody else is doing the standard program that fails, then they gain all the weight back. Let's see if people sign up twice. Let's see the in-between part to see if they gain a bunch of weight.
Did you have more people who signed up for multiple ones now also instead of doing one and done?
Yeah, it was great. And part of that was like these seminars that we would do would be this big group together. So I'd be the bozo, up in front, like teaching people. But if somebody's done it once or twice before, they would chip in and start helping and offer suggestions. And so it was building community. And everybody just knew we were this like kind of savage little group doing our own little thing and getting great results. And so that to me really sent me down the path that eventually I made to carnivore.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so eventually got you to a carnivore. So how have you personally, what do you do for your workouts? Let's talk about that first real quick. Like, what's your workout routine look like now? As you're busy running like the most popular fitness podcast in America and all the other things that you're doing.
That's hilarious. Walking is my favorite form of exercise. I walk several hours a day if I can. That's where I do my research. I do my learning. I'm listening to a book, or today I was crushing your podcast that you and Natalie do in preparation for our second interview. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite. I'll also bike as much as I can between my clients. That gives me a little bit of exercise. I play ice hockey once a week, so that kind of takes care of my high intensity. It's typically like a minute or two of like really high speed and then sitting down for like 3 or 4 minutes. So that's been really nice. Other than that, I do strength train. It depends on the time of year. Frankly, I tend to strength train a lot more in the winter time when the weather is a little crappy and I can't walk as much outside. Sure. But I will tend to do some type of a high intensity, slow strength type of a workout that's promoted by Dr. Doug McGuff and Body by Strength. Whatever that looks like. It might be my community center, which has some decent machines. I can go and get in and out in 15 minutes. I might take a really heavy band and walk it up to the lake by my house, which I might even do after this, and just do some banded exercises. But I make sure that regardless of how long the workout is, I'm taking myself very, very, very close to muscular failure. It's a really, really deep level of intensity and fatigue. Mm-hmm. You start to get kind of shaky. You get a little anxious. You really just are very uncomfortable, and you just try to push past that. However you can do that, I think is the most effective form of strength training. So I keep it pretty simple. I probably don't strength train more than 30, 40 minutes a week. That's about it.
Okay. Fantastic. That's awesome. No, I think that's a good example of, everybody that I have on, and even myself, I change my stuff up on a regular basis, which is funny because I was thinking about this the other day. I'm working, I don't know if I told you, I'm working on book number 3. And I'm going through stuff now about consistency, and I'm writing about all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about it today. I was like, I'm telling everybody they need to be consistent, not change things up as often. And then here I am. Well, this month I'm doing this, and this month I'm doing that, and this month, it's like, I wonder if that's sending mixed messages. But when I also talk about context and perspective, right? If you're someone who's just getting started and you're trying to get to a point where you have the physical freedom that you're looking for, you need to be consistent, and you need to not change things up too much. When you're at a point like you and I are at, or we've been doing this for a while, we've been down that road. We've gotten to a point where now we have that open playing field, or that white canvas that we can write, we can draw, we can color, we can marker, we can paint, we can do whatever we want on that canvas, because we have that freedom to do that now, because we're not dealing with getting healthy. We've dealt with the sickness, we've dealt with the unhealthy, we've dealt with the dysfunction. Now we're at a point where we can do that, because that's not where we're going. Right now, it's more about expansion. It's more about learning and finding out what we can do and experiencing all that life has to offer. So I think there's a different perspective there. So whenever you guys hear about somebody like Casey or I, and you're like, you guys are doing all kinds of different stuff, but you're telling me all I have to do is stick with the boring regular stuff. Well, that's because we're in a different place.
Yeah. Well, we also earn the right? Like one of my favorite books that I recommend to everybody, by the way, the audiobook is fantastic, is Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. And he makes the point in Green Lights that says, like, you need rules and boundaries. You need to stay within the lines in your coloring book before you can then go create whatever you like. You need to understand the rules of being an entrepreneur before you can then go out and run your business the way you want to. Dude, I'm like you. I was reading Muscle and Fitness magazine as a teenager. I was reading the books from the library and understanding program design. I did my certification. Like, we have earned the right to get there. And that's not to say if you're just getting started that you haven't, but you kind of need to work on that. And you need structure in the beginning so that then you can do what Coach Bronson does and do whatever sounds fun and engaging for that day. Maybe that's throwing kettlebells around. Maybe the next day it's some powerlifting. Maybe the next day it's going to walk. Like, you've earned the right because you stuck with the structure for so long.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that last part, for so long, because it's a lot of it isn't just the work that you put in, but it's how long you put the work in. How much quality work have you put in? I know a lot of people that are like, I've been doing this for 5 years. How come I'm not where I want to be? It's because you haven't been doing with the right things. You haven't been putting in the effort that it takes. Just because you've been following a program or doing keto or doing carnivore for 3 years doesn't mean that you have been consistent enough to facilitate the change you're looking for.
Yep,
so
agreed.
There's a lot of factors that go into that. And just because you say you call yourself a carnivore, you call yourself a weightlifter, or you say that you exercise, that may not be what you may not be doing what it takes. So there's a lot of stuff to look at there. Okay. So you currently are beating me, which I never thought I would say, in the number of eggs that you eat, that a person eats a day. You're the only person I know that eats more eggs than I do.
Yes.
In a day. So tell me about these eggs, man. Aren't you going to get heart disease and high blood pressure and
totally
all these things?
I keep tagging it as like, this is day 1200 of my like suicide by cholesterol project. Oh man. You know, eggs are one of my favorite foods anyway. I've always had them. I've always loved whole eggs. Yep. You know, there are times on the weekends where I will eat up to 20 eggs, I think is my record. This year I got way into Formula One, so I called them my quali eggs, and I watched them during qualifying for Formula One. The recipe that I used came kind of adjusted from the recipe for what is called slutty eggs, which is basically you just take a big chunk of butter, you know, scramble up your eggs really good, and then just slowly kind of keep them moving over low to medium heat. And the texture for me is what allows me to get that many in. I have to be careful because when I do that, that's my meal. Like I'm done for 30 hours. I will not be hungry at all. So if I want to smoke up a tri-tip or do something for dinner, I can't do that. I would be way too full. During the week, I'll do hard boiled, and I'll maybe like today I had 8. And so I don't eat as many during the week when I'm busy. I just need something really convenient for, you know, somebody to eat around noon or 1 or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting if you choose to do this type of lifestyle because you want to just do it for kicks and giggles and you don't really care what the health outcome is, like that's fine. You can just go and do that and that's fine. But when you are starting to recommend this to your friends, your family, your kids, maybe your clients, like that's a different ballgame. You better damn well know your stuff if you're going to start messing with advice that is completely the opposite of what everybody's being told and the exact opposite of everything that nutrition manual behind me, Precision Nutrition, the same cert that you did, you have to be so sure that your information is right before you go out and start sharing that with other people. And so that's kind of what I was mentioning as far as like an obsession earlier. When you get into this stuff, it really does become an obsession. I know it has for you too, but I have to make sure that I'm up on the latest knowledge. I know how cholesterol works and subfractions of cholesterol, how to read blood tests and like all these weird things that maybe a personal trainer shouldn't have to know how to do. But I also want to be very, very, very comfortable saying the things that I'm saying to my clients. And without doing the study and doing the work and the time to get into this stuff, I don't think you've earned the right to do that either.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, there's a difference between sharing your story and saying, this is what worked for me, which I think more people need to do. I would love if everybody that's doing this said, hey, this is, and not just nutrition, fitness as well. Like, hey guys, you know, I started doing this for exercise and it's been amazing. Is just as powerful as, hey guys, I stopped eating French fries and it's amazing. Like any story that is talking about a change that you've made, share it with people if it's working for you. But then there's a difference between sharing a story and giving advice.
Yeah.
And I think in order to give advice, like you said, you better make damn well sure that you are as qualified as you possibly can to do that. You know, and I think, and I'm not saying you have to go out and get a certification or open a gym or become a trainer or whatever else, but those things don't hurt. But you definitely should be able to know where the research is. And if you're going to say at a minimum, I think this is the minimum that you should be able to do if you're going to give advice to people is even if you can't directly answer the question because you don't have the full comprehension of the information yet, you should be able to give a reference where you got the information.
Yeah,
at a minimum, you should be able to say, this is where I read it. You go read it for yourself and you can make up your own mind.
Yep.
Right. At a minimum. And if you don't have a reference, then you really should only be giving your story.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I'll also give another example. This was just recent that involved you. Like, look at KetoCon. Like, you and I did not get paid to take a weekend and travel down to KetoCon. Like, that was our weekend. People go to the beach, right? People go chill out and enjoy things. We're like sacrificing client hours on our own dime to travel down so we can learn and network and grow in this space. Like, this is my life. I'm dedicating my entire life to this, just the way you are. And like, it's that kind of level. Again, if we're going back to like what kind of coach you're looking for, you'd really want to find that in a coach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So when we talk about nutrition, we talk about keto, carnivore. You started kind of keto. You're pretty much carnivore now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that change affect your fitness?
Great question. So once I learned in like 2012 that fat was like okay for endurance sport, I remember that was the transition of like, okay, now my salads have avocado and maybe some olive oil. Somebody gave me a radio recording of Nina Teichol's doing an interview on her recent book in 2014, The Big Fat Surprise.
Yeah.
I remember sitting on that for a really long time because I felt an internal resistance. Like, if this was right, I think all my other nutrition education might be wrong. And I resisted it hard. I remember it sat on my computer for a while before I took the time to listen to it. And then in 2017, I had seen higher fat, lower carbohydrate working pretty well, but I took my precision nutrition certification in 2017. And so now I'm back in this world of like behavior coaching, whole grains. These are all the fruits and vegetables. Here's the list, all the micronutrients. And then let's get you on a program where I'm coaching you. And every 2 weeks you come in, not having hit your targets. Let me tell you the ways you sucked. Like, you didn't eat until you're 80% full. You didn't food journal. You didn't consider your feelings, whatever nonsense we had to do. I don't think there's not a place for that. I just know that it doesn't work. It doesn't work for a lot of people. But that got me back into that world until the 2018 kind of transition with the weight loss contest. We were getting people great results. I was definitely on a ketogenic diet then. It was around that time that I heard the famous Sean Baker, Joe Rogan interview. I listened until it was about halfway through. Dr. Baker said, I really don't like blood markers as much as I used to. I don't trust them. I really think that how you feel should be the best indicator of your health. I thought that was absolutely preposterous, so I turned it off.
Have you ever told him that? Have you ever told him?
Oh yeah, on my interview, I work for Rivero. I'm a coach for his site. He was like my 20th guest on my podcast. I'm like, dude, like literally at that time, I've not finished that interview. I'm sorry. I'll go back. And last year I did finish it. But yeah, that was when it was introduced. And, early on, I really loved the work of Paul Saladino. He's not somebody I follow anymore, but he was kind of bringing this out in the forefront. And you started to hear other people trying this. And so it was April of 2019 that I decided to try my first 30 days. And, some of the things I expected, like I knew I'd lose a little bit of weight. It wasn't a huge jump for me. It was a pretty easy transition. My digestion was pretty rough for, I'd say, the first 4 to 6 weeks. So that took a little longer. But man, I remember 2 weeks in, like the feeling of peace, of like calmness, of like, there's not anxiety. I didn't think I had anxiety, right? Like I thought I was fine. I was never diagnosed with anything, but I was just spinning all the time and like anxiety, worry about all these things that were never going to happen. I remember early on, somebody needed to refund a big personal training package, which was a huge financial loss for me. And I was just like, yeah, cool. Like, here you go. Like, if anything works out in the future, let me know, but God bless. I hope everything's great for you. And everything was just like calm. And that's something I was not expecting. I now fully expect it in any of my people who try the carnivore diet. I think it's one of the best things is your mentality is just so different. And then it's all the things you forget about. Like you're not really focused on it. Like one of my podcast interviews forgot that she had lost 5 pounds in 2 weeks and forgot to mention it in the interview because we talked about like 10 other different things. Like my teeth are way harder and less sensitive. I never get athlete's foot. I used to get athlete's foot like chronically all the time. I don't know where it went. Playing hockey, if I would poke check too hard, my shoulder would almost, I don't know if it would come out, but it would just sharp pain kill me. I don't know when that has happened. That does not happen to me anymore. It's all these like weird things that you almost like can't explain, yet you consider what a carnivore diet is. And you're like, this explains everything perfectly. You're eating the healthiest food, hopefully in the right quantities to energize and power you. And you eliminated all of the nasty, toxic food that you could be eating. Of course, your entire life is going to optimize. It's not just heart health. It's not just brain health. It's like, this is the best diet for all of it. And then some. It's amazing. And so that for me was enough to keep me on it. I remember in 2021, I cheated on my diet. So another funny side story. Here, I know. Here in Utah, on the 24th of July, it's called Pioneer Day. And it's when the Mormon pioneers kind of entered the valley for the first time. And it sounds weird, but it's a bigger holiday here than the 4th of July is. So
I can see that.
You can see that?
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, okay. So I grew up Mormon, but I'm not Mormon anymore. And so the non-Mormons, what we do is called Pie and Beer Day to kind of, mimic them. And we get to have our own parties and our own little celebrations.
That's awesome.
And it's great. 2 years ago, I ended up buying a pie. No big deal. I took a bite, and then I took a bite, and then I took a bite, took a bite, took a bite, way past the point that I wanted to eat it. I finished the entire thing, and it was a good, I don't know, all night, the next day, 36 hours maybe of just spinning in anxiety again. And that was the day I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. I was even at some points, I was like eating fruit that was growing on trees in my neighborhood. And I'm not going to be the one that tells people that fruit is necessarily like bad for you, but I know what it does for me. That fruit causes the pie. I'll eat the fruit and be starving in 20 or 30 minutes between clients when I shouldn't be. And then I'll eat anything, and that will really upset me. Right. So for me, it's not necessarily even like a trigger food. It's just that's going to start the hunger cycle that I don't want to play with. And so I've been fairly strict carnivore since, and I feel better at 39 than I ever have in my life.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And your workouts, you have no problem. You said you walk a lot, you do intense workouts. Like, have you noticed any difficulty gaining muscle, any difficulty finishing your workouts, any of that kind of stuff?
Not really. No, not in any functional way. I'm clearly not out to like have the biggest muscles ever, but no, I haven't. I find that recovery is really quick and easy. I feel great the next day after doing any of that. I could do all of that in one day. I could play hockey, bike 30 miles, go walk 20,000 steps is a pretty normal number for me. Yeah. Maybe throw on some strength training. I do 100 push-ups every single day. I could do that all in one day, and that would be just fine for me. So.
Okay. Awesome. So, I'm big on fitness. I'm big on fitness is freedom. The pursuit of physical independence is what this whole thing is about, whether it's fitness, nutrition, whatever. What is, not using those words because I just said those, so not to put words in your mouth, but what does fitness mean to you, and how do you try to, what is the message about fitness that you try to get your clients to understand?
Great question. I will use the name of our company to answer that question. I have to give credit to Bethany, my wife, for coming up with it. When the pandemic of 2020 happened, we were pretty early put on unemployment from our gym. And, it was a really confusing time. And we were sitting around on unemployment wondering what the hell we were going to do. When the gym opened up again, we were back on like 100% commission if we were going to go back there. And we just had no clients. And so we thought the best way through was to just start our own company so that we could, train our clients. We built our basement out to be a gym and a Pilates studio where my wife works. She also does myofascial tissue release techniques down there. It's really great work that she does.
I'll be right over.
Yeah, come on over. She's amazing. She's better than I am for sure. And so we decided to start our own company, and the name that she came up with was Boundless Body. And so I will say my favorite definition is to be boundless. We live in a culture and society where people are bound up by their lifestyle decisions. And if you want to go witness it, just go to Costco. Like, I've been noticing even at Costco lately, all of the handicap spots are taken. And you can walk through Costco and see more people on scooters than you can identify people that are healthy and metabolically well. Yeah, like, absolutely. It's like playing Where's Waldo these days, dude. Like, it's kind of hard to find the fit people. And the cool thing about being fit and healthy is you have no boundaries. You are boundless in the sense that nothing can stop you from doing the things that you want to do. Like, my walking is great in the morning, but my walking moves me to a place where I get to watch the sunrise over the Wasatch Mountains every single morning. That is such a beautiful, enriching experience for me that, like, why would you limit yourself like that? Like, you could call me and say, dude, in a week I'm coming out. We're going to go backpacking in the Uinta Mountains. Come on over. It's a 10-mile hike for 7 days. I'd be like, yeah, great. Let's load up a pack, fill it with a bunch of jerky, and go have a great time. Like, there's no limitations when you understand what can help make your life more free and more boundless. And so that's my favorite way to kind of define it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. When you're getting started, I'm going to ask you this question. What are the benefits of taking your time and making small steps versus just jumping in and doing a whole bunch of things at the same time? Because it's something I see people they have a lot of issues with when they're first getting started. They're not sure what's the best way to go.
That's a really good question. I get that one a lot around transitioning onto like either keto or a carnivore diet. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell people, like, I kind of think of it as a pool. Like, you've got the kind of shallow, more gradual end, and you also have like the diving board that's 10 feet up. Yep. You can kind of get in the pool either way. One is going to shock your system. It's going to be really cold, but you might get it out of the way a little earlier. The other one's a little bit more gradual. You'll get used to the water. It'll just take you longer to get all the way in the pool. So I don't think one way is right or one way is wrong. I think people need to understand their own personalities and how they've done things in the past. If you've done a workout program and a diet and it was a sudden change with a lot of different things, did that work? I would argue that I'm kind of with you. I think a slow change done consistently is far better and much more likely that you will make another change.
Yeah.
So if you're getting started, maybe you get a gym membership and you just swipe your card, like, and walk around the desk and leave. Like, maybe if you can't even do that, maybe it's like walk to your mailbox. Start doing something and then see if you can like build on it. You're going to start to like feel good that you accomplished what you set out to do. Like, okay, mailbox wasn't too bad. Let me see if I can go to the end of the street. Maybe I can go a half a mile. Maybe I can go a mile. Like, over time, you'll add those habits. I think the other thing that you probably notice as well is that once those habits are in place in people's lives, they don't even know. They kind of forget about it. And that reminds me, here's a great example. When step trackers first started coming out, Fitbit first started coming out, my gym started selling them, and we were doing step contests with people. And part of what we were doing was we had like a leaderboard, and we'd show everybody where they were, and the trainers obviously didn't want to get beat by our clients. So I learned back in 2012, if I park at the very back of the parking lot, that automatically gets me like at least another few hundred steps. At Costco could be like 1,000 extra steps just by doing that one thing. Dude, I did that in 2012. I have not stopped doing that to this day. I always park at the last spot. How many miles is that? How much vitamin D is that? How many extra breaths of fresh air is that compounded over 13 or 11 years at this point? I think that's one example of like you doing something small and you don't even realize it starts like adding up. Like if I gave you the 35,000 push-up challenge, you'd be like, I don't want to do that. But if I just said do 100 push-ups a day, you'd be like, okay, well, I can do that. So it's just, I think if you look at it as let's make a small change, let's get a small win, that's more likely to get you in the right direction to keep going.
Yeah, that's another aspect of it, right? The small win, having something quickly. I know this is something as trainers that we want to do when we get a new client is we want to give them something to celebrate as soon as possible. Even if it's like that first session, find something that they can do well as part of that process. We can give them affirmation, give them that success, cheer them on and say, look, you made progress today. Just when you got started, right? So I think that's
so important.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you very much for being on, man. I appreciate it. And we're going to do another one here in a little bit where Nat and I are going to come on your channel and we're going to talk about some stuff we got going on.
I'm so excited, dude. You're one of my favorite people to chat with. Like even places like KetoCon or Keto Salt Lake. Like I just seem to like find you. And like even if we're just sitting at the couch at KetoCon and just BSing and talking about stuff. I love your work and love everything you do. And it's just an honor to be here today. So thank you so very much.
Man. Same for you. And I think it's one of those things. It's the trainer camaraderie. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Zane yet. Zane Griggs, who did the book with Dr. Barry recently.
We've messaged back and forth, but I don't know that I met him in person.
Okay, so when you get him on here, it's going to be the same thing. I had him on a couple weeks ago, and he's got 15 plus years, 20 years of personal training, same kind of thing. So
Rad.
having someone that you're talking to that has the similar experiences that you've had, it just changes the dynamic. It's not like you're talking to just someone who's done coaching online, or they're just an influencer, or they're a doctor, or like the fitness personal training culture is very different than pretty much everything else that's in this space. So it's kind of cool to have a few of us out there that we can say, buddies.
Yeah, so awesome. I love it.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot for being on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.